Friends, I can't tell you how wonderful it is for me to be with you right now. This time we spend together is a gift to me, a time when I feel hopeful. Maybe because during this time I am not watching the news or reading the headlines. We all need time to disconnect from the sources of distress and reconnect with the great love that is bigger than our fears. Yet our fears are real. We are not here to pretend that everything is just wonderful, because clearly everything is not. There is war, there is climate change, there are hate crimes, there is illness, and as the days grow shorter and the nights longer, everything can feel a bit overwhelming, even hopeless. And that's why we lit a candle today, the first candle of the Advent wreath, the one that stands for hope. It may seem like a small gesture of great futility, one tiny little flame against so much darkness. But as Archbishop Desmond Tutu once said, hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness. And the cynic inside our heads snorts and says, yeah, then where is it? I don't see a lot of light these days. This may be true. But you see, the thing about hope is that it is born out of hopelessness. We rarely talk about hope when things are going great. You don't tell someone riding the highs of life to just have hope. Who needs hope when you're sitting on cloud 9? Hope is something we look for in the darker times, those very instances when hope seems most elusive. And to the cynic's question, where is this lovely thing called hope? One of the wisest answers I've ever heard comes to us from the Reverend Fred Rogers, better known to many as Mr. Rogers. Actually, it comes from his mother, which shouldn't surprise us. We would do well to remember the wisdom of our mamas. Mr. Rogers used to say to his audience of children, when I was a boy and would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. And this is true. Even in the most wretched and miserable of situations, there are always helpers, and there are many more we don't see who are helping the helpers to be there. That is what hope looks like. But there are times that challenge even those who have trained their eyes to see hope. Even Mr. Rogers struggled to take his own mother's advice. His very last show aired in August of 2001, just weeks before the terrorist attacks that devastated our nation. He was asked to come out of retirement and create some short videos to help children process this huge and terrifying thing that they had no way to manage. He agreed to do the videos, but privately he admitted, I just don't know what good these are going to do. It's hard to know what good anything is going to do when we're up against these huge challenges that drain us of all hope. When the world is literally on fire, either wildfire or gunfire, what can any of us possibly do? Is there any point to hope for change when all evidence suggests that we might still come up $1 short and a day late? Well, this is what Mr. Rogers said to a post-9/11 world. He said, no matter what our particular job, especially in our world today, we are all called to be tikkun olam, repairers of creation. Mr. Rogers was using a Hebrew phrase, tikkun olam, which refers to the healing of the world and all the things that bring about the healing of the world. What does tikkun olam look like? Well, it depends on what your skill set is, right? If you're a healer, you bind up the wounded. If you're an engineer, you work on sustainable design. If you work with kids, you show them how to speak kindly and treat others with respect. All of us have some way of participating in tikkun olam, healing the world. In his video, Mr. Rogers tapped into another aspect of hope, which is gratitude. He said, thank you for whatever you do, wherever you are, to bring joy and light and hope and faith and pardon and love to your neighbor and to yourself. In addition to noticing who is helping and using our own gifts to participate in the healing work, gratitude is the other building block of hope. By acknowledging the goodness and graciousness of others and of God, we open ourselves to receiving the gift of hope. As Emily Dickinson wrote, hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. Hope does not ask a single thing of us, but when it does perch in our soul, it uses us to help sing its song. The ancient poetry of the Psalms includes a song of hope that the people sang during their time of exile when they wondered if they could ever hope to see their homeland or their temple or the loved ones from whom they had been forcibly separated. The song, known as Psalm 80, includes this repeated refrain, "Restore us, O God, let your face shine that we may be saved." Although the psalm also contains words of lament, the people have been fed the bread of tears and been given tears to drink in full measure, the song always circles back around to the hope that God would restore them, leading them into a life of wholeness, shining blessing upon them that they may be saved from the swirl of despair and tragedy that threatened to overcome them. Ultimately, the people were saved, led back into a better way of living, but it did require their participation. This is the nature of hope. It is not passive but active. Krista Tippett, host of the wonderful On Being radio podcast, often refers to hope as muscular. I like that image of hope. Sleeves rolled up, muscles engaged into action, for it is possible to have hope when we are actively working on a solution. Like, I don't just hope that my forest won't be incinerated by catastrophic wildfire someday. I use my muscles to remove the overgrowth and give the trees a fighting chance. I also don't just hope that the kids in our community will know that God loves them every time they're driven past our church building. I march up to the school once a week and march right back down to church with a pack of them so that we can teach them that they are loved. So look around. Where is the darkness into which you yourself might be able to bring a little bit of light? All it takes is one candle at a time held with love and tenderness. And what usually ends up happening is that others are drawn to the light and they extend their own unlit or maybe burned out candles, and soon there is light enough to see. We will experience that metaphorically on Christmas Eve when we spread the light of Christ one candle at a time. But for now, today, we just have this one little candle, the one we call hope. I invite you to meditate this week on where you can find hope. Where do you see the helpers? What might you be called to do to participate in the healing? What blessings can you remember with gratitude? God has an excellent track record of offering blessing, especially when we accept our role as conveyors of blessing. Remembering this and looking around at all the good that God is already bringing forth, this is what gives me hope. May it be so.